those losers in Pittsburgh, they're done with Mike Tomlin. They're done with him. They're disappointed in him. And it's possible that franchise, after years of, finishing above 500, but not winning anything, they could move on from Mike Tomlin. And if they do...
What are you even talking about?
If they do, if the Steelers listen to their fans and move on from Mike Tomlin, I wonder, who do you think likes Mike Tomlin? Anybody jump out at you that may like Mike Tomlin?
I'm going to guess you're going to say Aaron Rodgers.
I like Mike Tomlin.
That's right, he does. He loves Mike Tomlin.
And now, why does Aaron Rodgers like Mike Tomlin?
I'm a big Mike Tomlin fan.
But why is Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron, quick question, Aaron. And we appreciate Aaron Rodgers joining the show. We didn't have to pay him $1 million. We just needed to take a clip away from where he got paid $1 million. Hey, Aaron, your thoughts on Mike Tomlin overall?
I'm a big Mike Tomlin fan. I have been for a long time. I like the way that he speaks about his team. I like the way that he goes about his business. I like his confidence. I've heard nothing but good things from guys that have played there. I like Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, of course. And guess who else likes Mike Tomlin? Me.
So let me try to connect these dots.
Go ahead.
So the New England Patriots not somehow, because Mitch Trubisky stinks. That's how they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers last night.
Yes.
And as you're watching this game,
yes,
you become a fan of the Patriots beating the Pittsburgh
Yes.
Steelers.
Yeah, as the game was going on, I
Because
realized.
you knew that it would create negativity.
Yes.
From the fan base,
yes,
which would hopefully seep into the ownership structure
yes.
in Pittsburgh,
yes,
and cause them to move on from
yes.
Mike Tomlin, who is in a lame duck contract year.
Yes.
Next year, he's got 1 year left, and you would think they would extend him at some point since he's never had a losing season, yet hasn't won a Super Bowl since 2010, 11, whatever. It's been a long time since he won a Super Bowl.
2008, they won the Super Bowl. They lost in the Super Bowl in 2010 after they beat my team in the AFC Championship.
So they haven't been to a Super Bowl in 13 seasons, and because of all of that, despite all the winning, despite all the coach of all coaches, because he never actually loses.
Correct.
Losing season, that is. You think that they're going to fire him.
I think
and you think the Jets are going to fire Robert Saleh and then hire him.
All right, couple of things. Let's get to
that's a lot of moving parts.
I understand. This is the way my brain works on a Thursday night when I'm watching Steelers-Patriots. The Pittsburgh Steelers are collapsing, okay? They have just lost back-to-back games in their own building against teams that are 2-10. It had never happened before to a team with as good of a record in the history of the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers are likely to miss the playoffs. I think there's a chance, yes, when you have a head coach that is a lame duck because he only has 1 more year remaining, there is a chance that family, the Rooney family, that never makes changes. I understand that. They've had 3 coaches in 150 years. But it's possible after 3 consecutive years of missing the playoffs and not winning a playoff game since 2016. I think it's damn well possible that family and that organization thinks about moving on, because here's one thing I know. I know that city, and they're wrong for this, by the way, but I know that city, they're done with him. And here's the other thing I know. If Mike Tomlin is available, whether it's via trade, because you may have to call the Steelers and offer something since he has a year left on his deal, or he's fired, the New York Jets would be asinine to not make that phone call. And with all due respect to Robert Saleh, I would say this to Coach Saleh, who I know is a great guy. It's just business, bro. It's just business. Because I'm okay with Aaron Rodgers running the show enough to bring back this administration. I don't like this administration. I don't trust this administration. But I know that Aaron Rodgers runs this team at least for the next year or two. And I'm okay, as much as I don't love it, I'm okay with him running it back with the same coaches. But I also know that Aaron Rodgers knows that Mike Tomlin is on another level. And he would be gung-ho about a head coach as accomplished as him coming to town. So if things get murky in Pittsburgh, and they're collapsing right now. And if that organization listens to its fan base and is open to moving on from him, you would be foolish to not pick up the phone. I'm all in. Go get Tomlin.
I like Mike Tomlin.
I do too, Aaron. Where am I wrong?
So there have been 2 quarterbacks who have left a team where they won a Super Bowl and went to another team and won a Super Bowl. Right?
Okay.
Peyton Manning and Tom Brady.
Okay.
Do you know how many coaches have done that?
Zero.
Zero.
I understand.
There are no coaches. And you know why? Because it takes so long to build a culture that's Super Bowl viable. It just takes forever. And it takes the right kind of luck to get the right kind of players. Now, could that happen with Mike Tomlin and coming to the New York Jets? Sure. But there's so many moving parts for that to happen. Most importantly, and this is the biggest one, you mentioned it, the Rooney family doesn't fire coaches for non-deserving reasons. Hell, I don't even know if they fired Bill Cowher. I think they kind of just...
No, he retired.
I think they just kind of let him retire.
Yeah.
Hey, coach, it's fine. We'll find your replacement. You ready to retire? Great. Go sit in CBS's booth or actually the studio show, and we'll go find another coach who's going to fill right in and never lose and have another losing season. Right? The Rooneys just don't do that.
So, do you think that Mike Tomlin has a job for life? He's been there for 17 years, and I agree with you.
Honestly,
I think he's a great NFL head coach.
As long as they're not losing. Yeah, I do think he has a job until he doesn't want it anymore.
But don't you think there's a bar in Pittsburgh very similar to the Yankees? And I heard Boomer make this comparison this morning, or maybe it was Gio, I forget, about how the Yankee fan and the Steeler fan are very similar in that they have a really high bar. Like, for me, a winning season every year and delivering me 2 Super Bowls would make you an icon I would never get rid of. But in Pittsburgh, where they haven't won a postseason game since 2016, they haven't been to a Super Bowl since 2010, those winning records only go so far. Like, look at the Yankees this year. They won 82 games. You hear any Yankee fan waxing poetic about 82 and 80? So there is a different standard in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And because he has a year left on his deal, that's a sign that maybe ownership isn't as gung-ho in keeping him.
Yeah, but this is something that it would be unprecedented. Now, there's only been 3 coaches in their modern era history, right? So it's not a big enough sample size. If it was, I don't know, let's say 130 years or something, and they had like 5 coaches, maybe we could have a better conversation here. But I don't believe that the Rooneys listen to the fan base in that regard. Yes, they love their fan base. They want them to be happy. They want them to keep coming. But I think the best chance for them to do that is Mike Tomlin.
Well,
and so moving on from him, yeah, it sounds great. But the next obvious question, okay, and then what? Then who are you hiring?
That's their problem.
Yeah, but it's a problem that they would create.
I know, but you're dismissing
the problem.
Are you dismissing the idea that the Pittsburgh Steelers, who many of their fans have been disappointing over the last 5 years, are you dismissing that they may never move on from Mike Tomlin?
I think the Pittsburgh Steeler fan is frustrated because they think their team is better than it actually is. What I think Mike Tomlin needs to and probably will do this offseason is find an offensive coordinator who can develop a young quarterback, or just go find one of the veteran free agents that we talk about all the time to help them come in and win. They don't have good quarterback play.
I understand
they
that.
had to fire their offensive coordinator, 3 weeks ago?
Yes.
So the Steelers are incomplete. Yet somehow they are still a game over 500.
I'll tell you what I would do if I'm Woody Johnson and I'm Aaron Rodgers, who's partially running this franchise. And I have to be honest with Robert Saleh about this, so I'll do it on the radio in case Robert's listening. Robert, with all due respect, we're going to make a phone call to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We are. We're going to make a phone call.
This will go over well.
And we're going to have a conversation with ownership because we may have a top 5 pick. We may. And we may be willing to offer it. And I know that may sound like lunacy, but when you have a head coach as successful as Mike Tomlin, I'm sick and tired of waiting for years to find out if the Jets have a good head coach, to realize soon after they don't. The Jets have had terrible coaching for years and years and years. So any knock that one has on Mike Tomlin, I one-up you with Todd Bowles. I one-up you with Adam Gase. And with all due respect, I one-up you with Robert Saleh. So if I'm the New York Jets and I'm run by Aaron Rodgers and Woody Johnson, I make a phone call. And I call the Steelers up because he's got 1 year left on his deal. And I say, would you like to have a conversation? Because that's the same conversation that's going to occur this offseason when teams call New England about Bill Belichick. This has been talked about for weeks now. For weeks about how you may have to trade for Bill Belichick. I don't want to trade for Bill Belichick. I want to trade for Mike Tomlin. And I think that the quarterback of this team, the guy who's running this team, it would be lockstep with me in saying, yeah, let's go get Mike Tomlin.
I like Mike Tomlin.
I just don't think Mike Tomlin wants to not be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I don't think that the Rooneys want to not to want to be someone else be their head coach. It's interesting. I was just thinking about this. Who's a coach who started really slow and then turned it around?
Bill Parcells.
And became really, really good. Parcells is probably too long ago.
Okay.
Because that was an era, and we all remember this. Like you were the coach for at least 5 years. Right? Maybe they'd fire you after 6 or 7, whatever it was. In today's NFL, you get 2 years, basically 3 years to figure yourself out. After that, they'll jettison you. And Sean, I asked him, and he said, Zach Taylor is the perfect example.
Yeah.
Zach was bad. 2-14. I remember I did one of these games. Maybe it was 2020. It was a pandemic year. I did one of these games. I was like, man, this guy's not going to last. He was 4-11-1 that season. And you thought, dude, it's over for Zach Taylor. He just can't figure it out. And then he gets Joe Burrow. They go 10-7 in the first year where they have 17 games. They're AFC champions. They're in the Super Bowl, right? And since then, he's been 12-4, and this year he's 6-6. But obviously, his quarterback is hurt, so he's probably going to get a forgive it year. So, like the belief that you can't be bad as a head coach, and I put that in quotes, bad as a head coach, and then become good. I don't think that's. I don't know if it holds true. The challenge in the NFL is that you just don't get enough time. Right, you don't get enough time to figure it out, and I think Robert Saleh's in that spot right now, where if he had a quarterback, which they tried to get him, this team would be much better than they are.
Who would you rather have as head coach of your team, Mike Tomlin or Robert Saleh?
I mean, I love Mike Tomlin.
No, who would you rather have as your head coach of your team?
Mike Tomlin's a Super Bowl winning
Okay,
coach.
so the answer is Mike Tomlin?
Of course you'd want Mike Tomlin.
So then where am I wrong that if you're the owner of this team, you make the phone call? He has 1 year left on his deal. You can kind of smell the blood in that city because the fan base is pissed off. Make the phone call. I can't guarantee he's going to be available. I can't guarantee he's going to be fired, but I can tell you that they haven't won a playoff game in 7 years. And I can tell you they haven't been to a Super Bowl in over a decade.
I honestly think if you called up the Roonies, if Joe Douglas called up, it'd probably be a Woody thing. Woody Johnson calls up.
Have Aaron Rodgers make the damn phone call.
Definitely not. they would hang up on him. Hey, Aaron, appreciate you, man. Bye. Don't call us with nonsense like this. But if Woody Johnson called up the Roonies, they'd laugh at him. He's like, are you kidding? You must be joking, right? You're going to give me part of your business? Maybe, right? That we're not giving up our head coach.
Why hasn't he been extended yet then, T?
Because I don't know.
Oh, okay, well, I'm giving you the possibility on the no.
I'm not in that business. I expected it will get done.
Okay, he has a year left on his deal. The Steelers have just done something that's never been done by a team who had a 7-4 record. They lost in their own building to two of the worst teams in the world. You make the phone call. And I get it that it's awkward because there's a current head coach, and I'm okay with bringing these guys back. Look, I have a red line with Aaron Rodgers. There are certain things I would not be good with. There are certain things where I say, nope, I'm not good with that. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if Aaron Rodgers muscled his way into saying you can't take a quarterback, and I love the quarterback at number 2 or number 3 or number 4, wherever the Jets are drafting, I would kindly say, sorry, Aaron, we're going to do that. I have my red lines with him. I'm willing to bring back this coaching staff for him. But I think Aaron Rodgers, based on his past words and based on the fact that he knows football, would rather try to win with a head coach that's been one of the best coaches in the league for the last 2 decades. And if you see an opportunity, and this goes for more teams than just the New York Jets, but I happen to be a Jet fan, you make the phone call. You can shut it down all you want. They're the Steelers. They don't fire their coaches. They don't trade their coaches. Well, maybe someday they will. And maybe after losing back-to-back games to the Arizona Cardinals and the New England Patriots, maybe that's the moment they do it. So if I'm Aaron Rodgers and I'm Woody Johnson, I'll be upfront about it. I'll be respectful about it. I'll tell Coach Robert Saleh exactly what I'm doing. With respect, all right? With respect, I'll say it. But you damn right you make that phone call. And for anyone who's going to call up today or decide, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rip Mike Tomlin and tell you how he's not good and talk about all his deficiencies. Well, look at their offense. Look at this. Look at that. Here's my retort to all of you. Who'd you rather have coach your team, Mike Tomlin or Robert Saleh? And there is not a person out there besides Robert Saleh himself, maybe not even him, that could actually answer that question and say Robert Saleh. I am sick of waiting on coaches, as you basically put it, to find out if they're good. Okay? We could have a disagreement. You don't know yet? I think I know. I already know Mike Tomlin's good. And this may sound real crazy to Jet fans, But I'll tell you right now, if I call them up and they ask for my top pick, I'm actually doing it. And the reason I'm doing it,
it's going to be a top 5 pick.
I'll tell you why I'm doing it.
There's some good players in this draft. Forget the quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
There's some studs.
Yeah, some really good players.
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go through all the picks over the last 10 years that went in the top 5. Mm-hmm. Would you rather have that player as good as they are, or would you rather have a head coach that's won a freaking Super Bowl and a head coach that's above 500 every single season? The only way you guys can win that argument is by bringing up franchise quarterbacks. But there's no other player that's worth a head coach in a sport in which I think we'd all agree coaching matters.
You don't have your second-round pick, though, dude, either. This Jet team can survive not having their first or second-round pick just because they got Tomlin?
Hey, do you think this franchise could survive Robert Saleh?
No.
Oh, you don't know. And you don't know if he'll be the coach in a year or two.
Well, with Aaron Rodgers in the mix, yeah, I think it can. I think it absolutely can.
Yeah.
If Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback for the New York Jets, then Robert Saleh looks a lot different. Period. So does Nate Hackett. So does the offensive line. So does everybody. Woody, Joe Douglas. They all look better.
They all look different. How do you think Aaron Rodgers looks with Mike Tomlin as his head coach?
I don't know.
Oh, I do know. Better, because he's won a Super Bowl before. And that argument...
Because he likes him?
Well,
By the way, you think that's why Tomlin's lost 2 games in order to win teams? The moment his quarterback got hurt?
Well,
anybody looks better with that quarterback.
Right.
you know what? Is Mike Tomlin a great NFL head coach?
Yes, which is why the Steelers would laugh at the phone call.
Okay, then why would you even argue against why the Jets would go get him? Because you want to tell me the Steelers aren't getting rid of him, which is basically your point? Yeah. Okay. I'm all saying make a phone call. And there's blood in the water because of the failures over the last couple of weeks and the last couple of years and the fact they haven't won a playoff game in 2016. But you can't make the real argument that the Jets shouldn't and wouldn't be significantly better having a real head coach, something we have not seen with this franchise other than fart in the wind years with Rex Ryan.
So then you should
and
make
before
a
that,
list
Bill Parcells.
of the top 15 head coaches in football.
Yeah.
And in theory, you should make a phone call on every single one of them.
Come on, you know that's not the same.
It is the same.
No, it's not.
Because we're talking about a team. By the way, it might be more realistic because you're talking about the one franchise that doesn't get rid of head coaches.
Yeah, but you're talking about a franchise who, A, hasn't won a playoff game in 7 years, hasn't won a Super Bowl in more than a decade, and by the way, and this is big, because last night when the Patriots were winning this game, you damn right I Googled Mike Tomlin contract, because that matters. Has 1 year left on his deal. Has not been extended. That means something.
Yeah,
I'm a big Mike
it's
Tomlin
not
fan.
that the Steelers don't want him, because the ultimate question then becomes, who's the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers? That's a hard question, because I don't think there's a lot of great ones. There's a lot with potential, but there's not a lot of great coaches. Who are you coming to take Mike Tomlin's place?
They can have Robert Saleh if they want. Not going to argue. We'll come back and get your calls, 877-337-6666. More football this weekend. Obviously, we'll get back into the Juan Soto situation. We'll learn something new about Juan Soto that may concern some Yankee fans.